Hello. Everybody hear me? Okay, good. So for anyone who doesn't know who I am, I'm Lance. I'm part of the 801 hackerspace down in Salt Lake there. If you like what you see today and you want to learn some more, just come hang out with us. We love to have people come down and participate at the hackerspace. This is our website, our meetup, and then that's my website where I kind of post my stuff, which I haven't updated for a while, which I'll probably do this weekend. Alrighty. So, disclaimer. You know, it's going to be good. You got a disclaimer, right? I am not responsible for anything you do with anything you learn here. Don't blame it on me. Okay? I've got some fun stuff in here. I've got some pranks. You know, the stuff can be, it's fun if it's a friend. It's probably going to get you in trouble if it's a work, your boss or the CEO or whatnot. So I am not responsible if you do something dumb with this. So don't blame me.
Hey, Lance, hold on just a couple of minutes. So you're coming from the other
are we early? Okay, I can start over.
Yeah, we're just a little early.
Oh, okay.
Take off your firewall. Go to the back door.
Oh, you'll see my back door. You might go blind, but you'll see it. Can be. I'm stealing this water. He's always interested in your back door. I know, this is the first time I get to make fun of you in person.
This is why I didn't wear my 801 shirt, because you're always so professional.
I know. I should be more professional. Are you recording this? Probably.
Yeah. Notice I'm off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can wait like 2 minutes,
Okay.
that'd be awesome.
We will wait 2 minutes. Probably tell a joke. I don't.
Do the UDP one.
No. No one would get it.
You guys joke about UDP, but I don't know if you can get it.
Yeah.
Unreliable. And the worst part is the person says, no, tell me anyway.
Well, you could do a TCP joke and just keep telling it over and over again. So I've got a joke, well, since we're waiting anyway. It's a long joke. This is a terrible joke. No, it has nothing to do with networking. So, this is the worst joke in the world as far as I'm concerned. I've retold it a bunch of times, so some of my friends have already heard it. But so anyway, there's this planet out in space, and there's these advanced aliens that are watching this planet. And on this planet, there's all kinds of like creatures, animals. And all these animals can like talk and interact and be with each other. And they all kind of form their own groups, and they have these wars. And these aliens kind of watching this planet, right? So, welcome to come in. Yeah, I'm just telling a joke. So on this planet, these creatures have these wars that are like snakes and buffalo and goats and giraffes and lions and zebras and everything, but they've all kind of got their own communities and their own infrastructure and everything. So they have these wars, and they've been fighting these wars for years and years and years. And also on this planet, there's this giant tree out there in this planet, and it's just kind of this sacred area where no one's ever gone. And aliens just kind of observe this, that they avoid this tree. And on this tree, there's this giant lever. And it's just people have just kind of avoided it for a long time, these creatures. So, you know, they're having these wars and all these other things. And these aliens are observing them. And one day, the snake, called Nate the Snake, see, he's heard the joke before. Nate the Snake brings unity to these animals. He becomes kind of their Gandhi. He advocates peace. You know, he gets the zebras and the lions and the giraffes, and he gets them all together and gets them just, united and peaceful, and they kind of build like a world economy from Nate the Snake. And so he becomes really, really famous. And so, the snakes live a long time, so he's around for quite a while. So anyway, by the sacred tree, there's this road. They kind of built this road over time that kind of just goes around it, but people usually avoid it. Well, there's this trucker named Bill the Buffalo, and sometimes he uses that road to kind of get his deliveries on time, especially if he's behind, because it's faster to use this road. So anyway, he's going down this road, and he's really late. So and this road's normally desolate. There's normally no one there, and he's just barreling down the road, and he looks out there and he squints very slightly, and he looks. He's like, what is that in the road? And he gets closer and closer because he's going really, 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 really fast. And all of a sudden, he sees Nate the Snake come up and look at him and kind of, do the snake hiss. He's like, oh, it's Nate the Snake. And he recognizes Nate the Snake because Nate the Snake's image is everywhere, just everywhere. And he's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, it's like, well, my only option is, this road goes right next to this tree with this lever. And he's like, my only option is to just go off the road and hope, hope everything's okay. So he sees Nate the Snake, and he says, I just can't run over the president of the world. So he runs off the road, runs into the tree, the lever falls down, and the world explodes. You know what the moral of the story? Better Nate than lever. Terrible joke. All right, are we ready? We good?
Yeah, I just want to see, is Ethan Dodge, Dan Hennage, or Daryl Davidson in here now?
I worked with Ethan.
He won a book. So is he up in the other track? Did he leave?
Your roles, I worked with him.
Next. We'll see if he's upstairs. If not, we'll, now the room's settled, we'll just have more stuff to give away. You're up, Lance.
Okay.
Okay. Also, the text will be back.
All right, my name's Lance Buttars. I'm also known as Nemus on my handle. I'm also on IRC, #DC01 on Freenode if you want to get a hold of us. Come hang out. This is my talk, and as I will go back, as we discussed earlier, I am not responsible for any dumb thing you do with what I present today. If you do something dumb, it's your own fault. I'm not a lawyer. If you have a legal question, go ask a lawyer. Use your best judgment, but we're going to have some fun today. So I wanted to play around with the scenario of what if someone left their computer unlocked? Right? Yep, that's the first thing that happens, right? This. If you don't know who this is, you probably haven't left your computer unlocked. This is David Hasselhoff, everybody's favorite background. So yeah, you do the David Hasselhoff, right? That's pretty funny. But I mean, what else could we do? I mean, thinking in the mindset of we've got about 5-10 minutes to do something to their computer, what else could we do? Yeah. Change their keyboard. Yeah. I mean, well, these are fun, but they'll come back and be like, ha ha ha, prank's over, right? But let's just see if we can get a backdoor in place and keep the prank going, right? I mean, yeah, you change their desktop and all that stuff, but if you put a backdoors let you continue pranking the person. So let's talk a little bit about the prep work. So you're gonna kind of need a toolkit, and you can put it on a USB drive or maybe host it at a website. But for when I was setting up Netcat, which we're gonna look at is it's a really basic backdoor. It's probably not the one you're gonna want to use, but we're gonna use it in this example just so you can kind of get a familiarity with backdooring systems and just kind of like all the work that's involved with doing that. And this is without using Metasploit, and then afterward we'll see how you can do it in Metasploit. But you will need to kind of do some prep work. So if you know your targets, you know everyone at work's using Windows, or I mean your LAN party, all your friends ask you to do support on their computers, you can be like, okay, I know they're going to have Windows 7. So you get your toolkit together. So let's talk about setting up a toolkit for Windows 7. One thing that I noticed is that Windows 64-bit does not have edit anymore in the command prompt. You have to kind of get your own editor. I like being able to edit files in command line, so I kind of just downloaded this gvim, and then of course you want wget because you want to load more stuff on there from the command prompt, right? It took me a little while, but I did find a version of wget that worked with Windows 64, and then you need Kali. From Kali you need Netcat, because obviously Netcat's not installed by default on Windows. Wish it was, that'd be cool. You can save a lot of work. But I got my version from Kali just because I knew it would work. There's also this link here that'll take you to the Netcat for Windows that I've used before. So let's just talk about Netcat for a little bit. We're going to talk about setting it up as a persistent listener. So this is the command that if you were to set Netcat as a backdoor using Meterpreter, this is what the command that it runs. So this is the one it's going to run on boot. And I took this example, I have the link posted later, is a kind of a modification of what's pointed on the Meterpreter or Metasploit lab, Metasploitable. But so we can see here that we're going to have the L option. We want to make it persistent, so that means we want multiple connections to Netcat. You know, if one connection dies, we want to be able to reconnect to it. And then the port number, and then E, we want to tell it to execute a command. In this case, they're saying, as soon as a connection comes into this listener, we're going to start up a command prompt, Windows command prompt. And then the D has something to do with making Netcat silent, but I couldn't find any documentation of what that actually did. So, I'm from a Linux background mostly. Actually my first operating system was DOS, so I'm still pretty familiar with the Windows commands, but having used Linux, I thought it'd be kind of good for people to kind of associate which commands go with Windows commands if you're from a Linux background. But basically all you need is cd echo, so echo cd, which gives you the present working directory. You want a cat a file, and then you want edit files, run a script. We'll be talking about using Visual Basic scripts a lot here for a lot of our pranks. If you want to run a script from command line, you need to use wscript, and then you need to set the path. Who knows why you need to set a path? Why would you need to modify that? Yeah, because you're gonna want to download a bunch of pre-made scripts, or you want to have scripts. You're not going to always want to type in the full name. It gets kind of annoying, so you need to set the path. It helps a lot. So let's go with the scenarios. Person has left their computer unlocked. They're in the bathroom, whatever. Now you've got 5-10 minutes to get a backdoor installed. Well, these are all the commands, assuming that Netcat is in the directory where this is being run. If you save this as a .bat, this will install Netcat as a backdoor in the registry, so it'll run on boot, and then open the firewall for Netcat. You must run this command, run this bat with admin privileges, otherwise it won't copy the Netcat to the system32 file, or modify the firewall.
I have a question about your rule name.
Yeah? Yeah, that's the backdoor rule, right?
No.
Yeah. What do they say? And yeah, here's the example from Metasploitable and Offensive Security. They show you how to do it with Meterpreter, but I wanted to kind of figure out how to do it just from utilities that I had. Another thing I want to talk about is, you want to minimize the amount of evidence you're going to leave. Obviously, what we're doing here is going to leave a lot of evidence. I'm coming from the point of, well, this is a practical joke, and once you're done, you're going to go and clean it up. So, having a binary or something that's integrated with Explorer and all that stuff is going to be kind of bad if you're explaining to your boss what you did. But if you're like, oh, it's just this Netcat program, just delete it. It was just funny joke, ha ha ha. Get rid of it. So now we have Netcat installed, and then once, well, let's talk about this register, modification of the registry. So basically we're modifying the location and run, and we're saying add this command to boot. So when we boot up, we're going to start Netcat with a persistent listener on 449, and every time a connection comes in, we're going to start CMD. Now, instead of, I don't want to sit and wait for them to reboot their computer. I want it to run, I want Netcat to be running immediately. So what this script will do, this is a VB script, it'll run Netcat in the background and put it in process. So it'll just immediately loot it, put it into memory and start running the process. So with these two scripts here, I now have a backdoor into the system and I can walk away. Now if I'm on the local area network, I can connect to it. And then here is just an example of what Netcat looks like when it's running from that VB script. As you can see here, Internet Explorer is running Netcat. So this is Process Explorer. You can download it from that link. It just kind of lets you look at what processes and where they come in Windows. It's a good tool. But I just wanted to verify, yes, Netcat is actually running. And then all you need to do is connect to it from, this is from Kali, just get netcat-v, the IP address, and then the port. So here we go. We now have a shell into our victim's computer. This is another useful script if you want to run commands without, without having a shell come up. This will run. This is a VB script. It'll run a command, bash commands, or not bash, CMD commands, and won't bring. That bring up. You ever seen that black box that comes up and installing something, a bunch of them. So that kind of hides that. So let's look at some pranks here. So this is kind of fun. This will have the keyboard type "you are a fool" every 100 seconds. Kind of annoying, right? I mean, you're typing and it says "you are a fool." Keeps going. Run it.
You gotta remember to hit the enter key so they're in an active chat window.
Yeah. I'll have to add that. That's a good point. Send "you are a fool" enter. That'll be hilarious. Here's another fun one. Let's just turn caps lock off and on randomly.
Why are you yelling at me?
In here, it's using every 100 seconds, but I mean, you could put in the random number generator and just have it go on and off. It'll just drive people insane. And then you could do something, maybe it's more virus-like. This just randomly copies anything to random and it just runs. So this will just spew garbage all over your desktop, all over your computer, just create files forever. It's kind of a fork bomb. And then here you could start Notepad continuously, because they probably wanted to see that. Or, if you want, maybe there's a website that they need to go to when their boss is, standing right there. Yeah, My Little Pony. Just start it up. And this is kind of cool. I did actually go through and I wanted to verify that this stuff actually worked before I talked about it, because I didn't want to look like an idiot. But this is kind of fun because you start it up and bam, it's just Internet Explorer and whatever URL you typed in there. And then this is kind of fun. You can make a disco out of their keyboard. Cap lock, num lock, scroll lock, have it go on to beat. And then you can play Windows startup tone. I want to run this because I want to listen to the people next to them, ask them, why are you restarting your computer? For the 5th time today. Oh, and then there's the classic. We're going to pop the CD-ROM drive up, in and out. Gets annoying. So there's a Windows fork bomb. If you don't know what a fork bomb is, it's an attack where in a process, it just eats up all the system resources, grinds the system to a complete halt. It's still running, but it's just too slow to even use. And this does actually work. This is kind of fun. I mean, there is ways to get past this, but this is to a normal user, they wouldn't know how to, go to task and actually delete the process. But this makes a file unclosable. So it brings up a prompt, and then you try to close the prompt, but it then immediately takes away the focus on it, so you can't close the prompt. You click on it and you can't. This has always been one of my favorite. Is you can actually in Windows 7 they have built-in text-to-speech, so you can actually talk to the user. So you can put in text, and see here you can just have a command where you type in text and you can actually say things to them with a voice. And then this is another one of my favorites. This is Muter. I got this from this site. But this will actually just mute their computer and then allow them to not change their volume. So if someone's listening to some really annoying music, you can just turn it off. That'd be nice. So now we have some pranks and stuff we can do, and we have a backdoor. It's pretty cool. So here's some other things you might want to know if you're running this. Is you need to know the shutdown command, because maybe you just want to shut their computer down for some reason, or log them off constantly. So here you can tell the system to restart, shut down, log off, give it a timeout, give dialog boxes, abort. So you could tell them the system's going to shut down and then not do it. Watch them quickly trying to save everything. And then when it's not, when they've got everything saved and they think everything's okay, just have it hard shut down.
Give them a minute and a half to call IT.
Yeah. Give them a couple minutes. That's a great thing is that they'll call IT and they say, oh, just reboot the computer. I'm like, bam, right back up with the Netcat listener. So this is, you might want to do if you want to kind of hide, because the batch, if you find the batch file, you're going to know, you're going to be like, oh, look, this is what they were actually doing. So you might want to try to kind of hide that a little bit. Now this isn't foolproof. This will just hide it from average users, average admins, because they won't know exactly what's going in the executable. You kind of have to depackage it and look at it. But you can actually compile batch scripts into executables. Same with VB scripts and PowerShell. It's still in beta for PowerShell, but I didn't get a chance to play with PowerShell. But that'll be the next prank vector is PowerShell. This is really useful for when I was setting all these up, because I was trying to get the firewall rules right. I kept messing them up on Windows 7. These are just all the commands. The one I found the most useful was the reset command here. Oops, back to that. The reset command just basically puts Windows back to its default settings. So if you enter a bunch of rules that are not working or you mess something up, you can just reset it. You can also tell it to block everything or open everything. But if you turn it off, it actually pops up a window that tells the user, hey, your firewall just got turned off. This is another thing I found useful is you can set tasks. So you can set up your prank, get the command ready, and then set it to go off in like 20 or 30 minutes. So, any question?
One thing to do is you can actually create services with batch files.
Really?
You can hide a service that sits and runs, and as it launches, it'll continuously keep it running.
I'll have to ask you about that, because I was playing around with that a little bit and I could never get it to execute anything because of the permissions. But I'll have to talk to you about that. That'll be interesting. But yeah, this is fun because you can you can prank someone and then you can go watch the prank happen. Now I thought this would be kind of relevant. Is maybe you want to get rid of your prank. You need to delete it. Well, Windows has a utility that does a deep delete. This will, do the overwrite, delete the file, and then overwrite the section over and over and over again. So you can download that and run it to get rid of your prank. Yeah, the whole drive. You want to get the whole drive. All right, so we talked about Windows. So I wanted to see, let's talk about setting up Netcat on Linux. Because you have a Linux administrator, they go to the bathroom, they go to lunch, they leave the terminal with root access open to the server somewhere, or or maybe they're just running Linux and you want to do some pranks. So if Linux, you're going to want to compile portable code yourself beforehand. I compiled auto SSH. We'll talk about that more later. Shred for like Sdelete, like we talked about earlier, and screen too is useful because we don't want to install software on their system. We don't want an apt-get or yum install anything, because then that kind of leaves more of a trail. We just want to put binaries on there and then just run them. One thing to note with Netcat on, I'll go back to this. I got Netcat from SourceForge for Windows, or not for Windows, for Linux, and I compiled it myself just because I couldn't find any good version, and I didn't want to pull the one from Kali because I didn't know if it had any dependencies or anything, and I wanted to see how portable it was, which it is portable, meaning that you can just copy it over to the system and run it. It doesn't have any additional files or dependencies. The only issue with the Netcat for Linux is it's not persistent. So it means it listens once, listens to a connection, then it closes. Well, we want to keep connecting to it, so we need to set up a persistent connection. So we're just going to wrap the Netcat process in a while loop and then tell it to execute bash. When I did that, so for this, you're probably going to want to host your, kind of your toolkit on a website, and then just get everything. And you got to remember too that there's a history. You can do a history clear. I wanted to add more stuff about kind of, hiding this type of stuff, but that gets pretty complicated pretty fast. So, and most Linux admins are going to look at, if there's something weird happening on their system, they're going to look at their history. But you can do a history --c, and that'll clear it out, but it looks pretty bad. But basically, we're just going to wget netcat. We're going to copy it to user bin so it's in the path, and then we're going to open a port in the firewall, and then we're going to no-hup the list. So we saved that batch file back here, or bash file, and then we're going to no-hup it so that it's not tied to the user. So what no-hup does, and I forgot to add, it does create a .nohup file, which you have to tell it not to do, which I forgot to put in here. But what that does is it makes it so the process isn't attached to the terminal or the user or anything, which we want in case they log out that the listener is still there. So once we have Netcat installed, we want to start it on boot. Normal place on Linux, or if you want to start something on boot, would be rc.local. But I mean, if you're a system admin or Linux admin, you're probably going to have stuff in there already. So you can be looking in there and be like, "What is this? I don't know what it is." So get rid of it. So I thought it'd probably be better to hide it in the init scripts. So every time CentOS or Debian startup, they have init scripts. You can put the listener in there, and then most likely no one will find it unless they're looking for it. The thing to note, so when we connected to the Netcat backdoor with Windows, we got a command prompt. With Linux, the command prompt doesn't come back, and there's a reason why, I can't remember. But you just get a blank screen where you type commands, and it does give you the output of the commands, but you don't actually see, the prompt there. So it can be a little confusing because it looks like you're just connected and nothing's happening. So you just try a command and you see, okay, I'm running as root on the system. Another useful command is this is the command I use, is netstat-lptun. I just remember lptun. Basically what this does is it ties processes to programs to processes, or processes to ports, and then the N gets rid of name resolution, because I hate name resolution, because I just want to know what the IP address is. But see, as you can see here, you can see that Netcat is running. There should have been, maybe this is the one that didn't, that's the wrong image. But here you can see that Netcat is running on port 445, if I had the right image. So anyway, I thought, well, let's get some Linux pranks in here. This is a cool one that I found. It's a combination of IP tables and a Perl script, which will flip all the images upside down on a web browser. So what it does is the IP tables will see the packet coming in, it'll redirect it to the Perl script, and the Perl script will then just invert all the images and return it to the browser.
To make it a little less noticeable, put a random
They just 4. Yeah, that would be good. Really drive people nuts when that like one's just not right. And this is a Linux fork bomb. This is pretty well known. This has to be run as root, but that'll take the system to a halt. By default, you have write, so you can actually write to a username, which writes to their terminal and just displays the text that you wrote and doesn't tell you anything about what's happening. To someone who's never, is fairly new to Linux, it can be kind of confusing because just all of a sudden your terminal's just typing stuff to you. This is another phone. You can cat, if they have like a desktop or something that's running Linux, you can cat dev urandom to their audio. Just send a bunch of screeching audio out. This one was fun. This changes all the output to bork bork. It's a Perl one-liner I found. Here's the URL for it. But yeah, it just turns everything into bork bork. All the output, you still type the commands and everything, it's just everything's bork bork. This is another classic one. This is one of my favorite ones that I've done at work because it's so easy. Is just, if you're not familiar with, there's a port where you can telnet, and it's an ASCII Star Wars. It's blinkinglights.nl. The whole movie, yes. I have not watched it, but I turned it on, left for an hour, and came back, and it was still going. And I think it's line by line ASCII art of Star Wars, A New Hope. So, I enjoyed it, so I'm sure every other user on the system will. You can send Star Wars, if you have root privileges by default, you can send Star Wars to their terminal. You just telnet to blinking lights and then just, push it right into their terminal. So you look at who, see some user there, they're on PTS0, that's a device, just pipe it in there, and whatever they're doing is gone. They are now watching Star Wars. And they can't, they can still do commands, but they can't see what the results are, so it's just nothing but Star Wars. And unless they find the process and kill it, they can't really do much. But you have to re-log in with your credentials and then go kill the process. But if you could write a script that would just automatically, as soon as someone logged in, send them Star Wars, and they'd probably never get past it. This is a link to more pranks, and this is a Reddit. You can have this e-link script run the mReddit, and it'll speak all of Reddit out. The computer. So just an FYI, if you need to disconnect from a process in Linux, like maybe you forgot the nohup command, you can do a Control-Z, background the process, and disown it. If you do that, then your user's no longer associated with the process, so you can exit cleanly. Just thought that would be kind of useful, because if you start the blinking lights telnet, and you're like, oh, I want to exit out and go do something else, but I still want it to go to someone else, this command prompt, you can just disown the process. These are another kind of just hiding your scripts a little bit. If you want to use Perl or something to write a prank, you can hide it. Compile Perl. This isn't quite foolproof. It doesn't support Perl very well, but it does work. It creates a binary. There's PHP compilers and obscurers, which is IonCube. More links there. So Netcat's kind of a fun beginner backdoor, but it's probably a bad idea to leave it on for a long time, because anyone who knows about it or finds it can connect to it, right? So that means if the port's open on the network, anyone on the network who sees it can connect to it, and they can do whatever they want. And then anything you send to it's not encrypted either. It's all in clear text. So if your admin's actually watching the network traffic, he can see all these commands going through the network, and see it's coming from your desktop going to this other desktop, which can be bad. It also requires a lot of additional tools to use effectively, because we had to get for Windows we had to get wget, we had to get vim, had to get Sdelete and all that other stuff that wasn't installed by default. So let's say, okay, now you've got a backdoor on these desktops, but they're only really usable on the local area network. What would you do next? Well, if you can get a box on that network that has SSH on it, you can bypass the firewall. Even if the firewall doesn't let the traffic out, let SSH out, you can change the port numbers until you find a port number that it lets out. They're doing outbound filtering. So let's set up a persistent SSH tunnel. So in this scenario, we're going to have an SSH server that's going to dial back to another SSH system that we have somewhere out on the internet. And then we're going to use SSH to tunnel all of our traffic and encrypt it. It'll be encrypted up to the point where it leaves the exit node, which would be the device or the system that's running SSH on that network. We're going to set up it's called a reverse SSH tunnel. So this machine that's on the network is going to do an SSH connection out from that network into your box, and then on your box it's going to open up a port on your box that's out on the web, and then that port is going to be mapped back through that SSH connection to that machine there or another machine on that local area network. So this completely bypasses the firewall if it's in place. So this is the command to do it. The -F and N basically make it run in the background and run without a command. The R option tells it that you want a reverse tunnel, not a normal tunnel. And so there's an example here. So you can tell it to set up a reverse tunnel back to the SSH port on that local machine, or you can tell it to send the traffic to a port on another machine. So the machines that we have, the Netcat server, we can send a reverse SSH tunnel to the Netcat port on that machine. And then it'll be encrypted up to that point. And the other cool thing is you can chain the R command. So you don't have to have one of these commands for every single time you want to have a network connection. You can just chain them all together, and then once it sets up the network connection, it will set up the tunnel. So to do this, we want to we want the connection on the server to be persistent, and we want it to automatically connect back to our SSH server. So we're going to set up generate keys, and then we're going to push that key to our remote server, and then we're going to use auto SSH to make the reverse shell persistent. So auto SSH is going to do the authentication. It's going to maintain the connection. So if the connection drops, auto SSH will reestablish it. And here, the important thing to note is the -I is the key that we generated, which we wanted to copy back to. I forgot that slide too. I need to add that. But you take your generated SSH key and put it on the other server so that when this server connects to it, it will auto authenticate and auto set up the SSH tunnel. This is a cool project I came across while doing research for this presentation. This is basically a guy showing how he put a Raspberry Pi inside a old laptop charger. So you can kind of put an SSH backdoor on someone's network. He goes through the whole process of setting it up and everything. So that's kind of the basic way of doing it without Metasploit. So Metasploit obviously is more powerful, gives you more tools, makes things a little bit easier. To do this, you'll need to use Metasploit as a backdoor to have it generate backdoors for you. You have to have a server with Metasploit on there that has a Metasploit listener. And there's more training there on Metasploit Unleashed for offensive security. And then just the key commands to know for that is mfsconsole, which gets you the Metasploit console, and then msf update, which updates Metasploit. So this is something that kind of eluded me in my younger years. I'm sure a lot of you people already know, a lot of people here already know this, but an exploit versus shellcode versus vulnerability. An exploit is how you take advantage of a system or a vulnerability. A vulnerability is just kind of like a weakness on a system or a person. Like in this case, our exploit is the fact that the person is logged into their system and left their session or command line or whatever unlocked so you can physically make changes to it. Payloads are what you do once you have the exploit. So in our case, in this example, a payload would be Netcat. So that's what you do on the operating system after you've done the exploit. When you get more into exploiting systems and shellcode and payloads and stuff, they'll kind of, meld together. You'll put an exploit with shellcode to take advantage of vulnerabilities. So let's, using Metasploit and MSF payload, we're going to generate a binary payload backdoor for our system. So we're not going to use Netcat. We're just going to use a reverse Windows shell, TCP shell. And so the key thing here is we need to set the localhost and the local port that's going to come back from the binary. And then these are the commands for MSF payload. You can do -8, that'll list all the available payloads. You can do MSF payload -path, payload path -o, list the options for the payload, so all the things you need to set for the payload. And then X, we create a Windows binary. R, create a raw format. C, take the payload and put it in C code. Or J, you can take the payload and put it in Java code. So in this example, we're going to create a payload, and we're going to tell it to dial back. So this is the binary that's going to be executed on the Windows system that's going to call back to this IP address, which is going to run a Metasploit listener on a port 777, and then we're going to call this our David Hasselhoff, because we always use David Hasselhoff, right? So we can use files, another good command on Linux. It basically tells you what type of file it is, and we can see, yes, this is an executable Windows exe. Yep. So now that we have the binary ready, we just need to get it on the system. So you could put it on a USB toolkit or put it on a website and download it onto the victim's system. And then we just need to set up your listener. So you start mfsconsole, you use exploit multi-handler, you set the L host, that's the port that's going to be listening for the connection to come in, the port. And then you type exploit, and that actually starts the listener. So then we execute David Hasselhoff, we see it's running, we see that David Hasselhoff has a command prompt. So this means that it went back, hit our listener, and we've got everything working. So that's kind of how you can create a binary payload that'll dial back to your mfsconsole, and you can get a persistent backdoor that way. This is another interesting thing I found is so I wanted to set up SSH keys on Windows. I wanted to see if it was possible to do an SSH reverse shell on Windows. And this guy claims to. I didn't have time to really go through his stuff, but he basically creates an SSH listener in Python and then compiles it, and then you can run it on Windows. It was kind of interesting. And then these are kind of cool. They're reverse shell one-liners in Perl and Python. I put the examples, but I got them from that website, so you can go back there and take a look at them. All right, that's everything. Questions?
One fun thing you can do also is Carlos Perez has released a SSH library that is tweaked for PowerShell. So you can
Wow.
set up more backdoor system connections to PowerShell in SSH.
What was that called again? Carlos?
Carlos Perez, he goes by the handle of Dark Operator.
Dark Operator, okay. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So that works in PowerShell? Nice. Any other questions? Concerns? Okay, thank you.